Almost 6 months after her death, Karabo's friends and family have launched a gender violence foundation which aims at getting women out of abusive relationships safely. Karabo was brutally murdered and her body was found burnt in Lyndhurst on the 28th of April. Her ex-boyfriend, Sandile Mantsoe, has been accused of murdering her, and the trial will begin in March 2018. Karabo's family say they are trying to start a foundation, or they have started a foundation, for abused women and children in the days just before she was brutally murdered. For more on this, in studio with us, we've got Karabo's sister, Boipelo Mokoena, as well as her best friend, Karabo's best friend, Michelle Daka, who is the director of the foundation. Thanks so much, both of you. It's great to have you here in studio.
Thank you for having us.
So you were telling me that this foundation, which we have heard about,
Yes.
was already basically Karabo's dream. She'd already started working on it. Were you all working together on opening up this foundation?
Yes, we actually were, and basically we just took from the footsteps that she had already left us with. And a lot of people were saying that maybe her story was famous because she was beautiful, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
Karabo was a woman of substance, and she was already working with a couple of foundations, including the Orphanage House Group and the Frida Hartley Shelter, who have been our partners. We actually launched with them this Saturday at the Da Vinci. And we managed to put together some sponsors, including Cyfleet and Leatherleaf, who managed to donate a car to the Orphanage House Group, which is the foundation that she used to work with, as well as provide training and employment for every woman at the Frida Hartley Shelter. So we just partnered with what she had already left us with, and we're carrying that forward.
Yeah. What is the name of the foundation?
The
Karabo Mokoena Foundation.
Okay. I assumed it was called that because obviously you want to honor her. And
the
you want to
irony
keep her
is she
name.
actually wrote it in her diary. She said, one day I'm going to have a foundation, and this is the name that it's going to have. So we're so blessed, to be honest with you. The irony that such a terrible situation could be turned around and in the end help many women going forward to just get out of those destructive situations.
Why was she so passionate about abuse? I mean, what was it in her and that perhaps happened in her life that she wanted to help other women?
More than anything else, it's because of her experience. You know, it's not about where she comes from, because she doesn't come from an abusive family, but it's more of her experiencing it herself and realizing, although it is late, you know, realizing that this is not what I want. This is not what I want for another person to experience. So she took it upon herself, you know, to tell people about her story, therefore, so that it can stop. You know, it's her personal experience. That's just that.
That was her. How long was she in this relationship with the accused, with Sandile? Because I mean, he was married, then they were apparently separated for a month. Then he started having this romance. Do you know how? As a matter of, you know, do you know how long she was with him?
Roughly about a year.
And when did the abuse start, according to what Karabo may have told you?
I mean, I'm not quite certain about that.
Yeah.
Because obviously people will not always tell you immediately, and they'll hide it for whatever amount of time. But even before the abuse, she wanted to have a foundation for children and even just an empowering person. Like, she was the kind of person you cannot come into Karabo's presence with a problem and she lets you leave the same way. She's going to sort it out. She's going to handle it. Yeah. So she just had that aura of like, this is where I'm. And now she took from the abuse that she felt, and she realized this is another aspect that she can add into her legacy that she's one day going to have. But initially she did want to be like a TV presenter because she was a talker. Yeah. She was someone, when she spoke, people listened. When she walked into a room, she commanded attention, basically, So even outside of the abuse, if that never happened to her, she was still going to be an impactful person because, you know, some people are just born that way.
You know, there's been a lot of accusations, and one would imagine during a trial that it is going to, I know it starts in March next year, but the accused is going to do everything to try and protect his interests. But I know it's a difficult question, but I suppose I need to ask it. I mean, he has said that, you know, Karabo claimed that her father was abusive towards her. You're a sister, you lived with her. What do you say to claims like that?
Like you just said, it's just claims. You know, anything for him to, you know, run.
Yeah.
And but I'll tell you that, I mean, there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
I mean, discipline is discipline in the household, and every house has rules, you know. So it had nothing to do with the father being abusive. That is just totally out of the question.
Yeah.
No.
And at the end of the day, it really does not. I mean, because he's claiming that she committed suicide, but I mean, at the end,
it doesn't give one the right.
No, not at all. When you say you're helping people, what is the idea? When you set up this foundation, is the idea to take women or children out of the environment? How is this foundation actually going to work? Have you got funding? Do you have a safe house? Just maybe some of those
In
issues.
the long run, that's actually what we plan on having, a safe haven. But as of right now, when we launched on Saturday, we did manage to get sponsorship, and we managed to partner with a couple of organizations that we're going to be launching a lot of programs with going forward. So I think as of right now, we're a foundation, but we're in partnership with other foundations to be able to find a way in which, let's say, the Frida Hartley shelter can provide shelter and we support them, and then the Orphanage House Group does the same thing, and we're basically going to be, we bring the sponsorship and the attention towards them until we're in a space where we can fully manage our foundation on its own, and we've gradually got into a space where we can provide counseling ourselves, we can build the haven by ourselves, and we're familiar with the NGO space fully.
Yeah. So I mean, you've got to start. You've got to get the word out there. But I suppose advice is also something that you want to be giving, because we do not want to be sitting here again discussing another woman whose life is lost and her friends and family opening up the foundation. It's not the way that life should be. It really shouldn't be. But what is the advice if you do find yourself in an abusive situation? What do you say? How do you help people?
I think talking. I always preach the same thing, that talk about it. Tell anybody. Tell a sister, tell a friend, tell a stranger. It always helps, you know. So with the foundation, this is us saying, you know, we're here to help. We're here to listen as well, you know. We can help where we can, but at the end of the day, you know, it's up to the victim to leave the relationship or leave that abusive background, because we're also not aiming at abusive relationships only. We also want to we're working with children as well who have issues at home. So this is us saying, tell someone, and we are also here to give out a helping hand. Yes.
You said something so interesting at the beginning. I mean, my question to you was, how long do you think the abuse went on for? But your response was, who knows? Because the person who's being abused tries to hide it as much as they can, whether or not they patch up with makeup or they suddenly wearing clothes that are covering themselves up. And you hide it away just to perhaps protect and maybe you're embarrassed about the situation. But that's not the way to handle it. You know, your advice, if you have to look back at some advice that perhaps you could have given Karabo at the time, what would you have told her? How would you have helped her?
There's something very powerful that Boipelo said on one interview. She said that one mistake that women in abused relationships make is they leave on a bad note. Don't leave on a bad note. Let it be a day where you've woken up, made him breakfast, treated him well, you're smiling, you're happy. Let him go and do his things, and then leave and let him never expect it. He won't know who to contact, because then you leave him in a place where he wasn't anticipating it, so he doesn't know where to start when he's looking for you. But never end things on a bad note. Don't aggravate him before you leave, basically.
How do we get hold of you? How can people help you, firstly? And also, if they need help, how do they get in touch with you?
We've got Facebook, Twitter, look everywhere. Social network. Karabo Mokoena, the Karabo Mokoena Foundation.
Yes.
Karabo Mokoena Foundation, everything.
LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And then you can also find us on our email, karabomokoenafoundation@gmail.com.
Okay. All right. So that's those are your details. You know, when you sort of speak to young girls and older women and young children, I mean, abuse knows no boundaries. It knows no age. It's across the board, but particularly young women that find themselves in a vulnerable position like Karabo, who meets a guy who may have money, looks like he's got a great life, but at the end of the day, the abuse is there. How often is this happening?
It is happening every single day.
I think as a young woman, you have to be very aware of especially if you're in a space where you don't have a great relationship with, let's say, the male figure in your life, or your brothers, or you don't have anyone who's been there when you're growing up to teach you certain things, you need to be aware of the fact that there's certain, you have a level of compromise that other girls normally wouldn't. So whereas a girl who grew up with a mother and father has certain things where she knows from day one, no, I'm not going to stand for that, because this is not what I grew up under. When you don't have that figure in your life, or when you're in a place where that relationship is broken, you miss a piece of protection. So you need to be aware of the psychological factors that basically attract you to certain kind of men, because it's really heartbreaking, but whatever is going on in your heart at a certain point in time, and whatever forgiveness that you haven't let go of, attracts a certain kind of man to you. And that's why you find consistently there's certain people that meet men who are constantly abusive in many ways, sometimes emotionally, sometimes physically, because the things that you haven't dealt with from your past, whether it's family situations, or whether sometimes your family can do the best they can, but what you're exposed to in your early relationships with men will determine the way you react to other men going forward. And no one can really break that cycle for you, except if you're conscious of it and you realize, wait, I'm in the same situation 5 years down the line, same situation, 10 years down the line, same thing.
You've got to take control of your own life.
Yes.
Ladies, thank you for talking to us. Good luck with the foundation,
Boipelo
and Michelle. Just again, that email address, I know it's the Karabo Mokoena Foundation, but
at
the email...
gmail.com.
Oh, so it's the Karabo Mokoena Foundation at gmail.com. On Facebook, on Twitter.
Everywhere.
You'll find it.
It is the way.
Thank you. Good luck. I hope it goes well, and we'll get an update from you as soon as you have some news to tell us.
Thank you.
Leaving the show on that note, unfortunately, not a very, very uplifting note, but I suppose an educational one. Look after yourselves. Please, you don't deserve to be in any form of abusive relationship.